But are there any residents? I don't see anyone who wishes to speak tonight. Do you live in Tewksbury, Chelsea?
I don't.
Sorry. All right, the next item we have on our agenda, I'm going to take all of these in one vote. I believe we can probably work our way through this. Just by way of background, the ABCC issued an advisory not too long ago on September 8, 2014, wherein they noticed that the state law allowing for the sale of alcoholic beverages on Sundays had been changed, and that the previous opening of stores within each community was fixed at noontime on Sundays. As of October 23, 2014, any license holding entity who wished to open on Sundays at 10 a.m. Could begin to do so, provided they made application to the local licensing authority on a form prescribed by the ABCC, and they provided corporate vote authorizing that change in hours. So that information is available and was done on a statewide basis. Here in Tewksbury, we have applications from Smitty's Liquors, K&B Liquors, Hobart's Country Store, White Dove Pantry, Stadium Liquor Mart, and Main Street Liquors, all requesting the same condition change, that their Sunday operating hours be changed from opening at noon to opening at 10 a.m. And it's my understanding, and I know correspondence was received by the board from Senior Town Council Zaroulis that also confirms that the statute requires that the local licensing authority approve the request as opposed to viewing it as a discretionary request. So in effect, this is a ministerial function once the filing forms are prepared and presented to us. So rather than take these individually, they're all literally the same request. If it's acceptable to my colleagues, I just ask for a motion to recognize those 6 entities in one motion.
Yeah, I just have 2 quick comments before
Sure.
we take that motion. I'd be happy to make it. One is that this is a state-driven thing.
Yep.
Where the town of Tewksbury is not making some declaration. And I think the other point that's significant here is that this is a request that's initiated by each liquor store or each place that sells alcohol and would like to start doing so sooner or earlier. It's as simple as they fill out an application, we vote on that application to approve it, and then the ABCC has the ultimate approval, which takes place after we've approved this tonight. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. And there's one other element to this that I think is noteworthy. When this first came to light, there was a petition circulated in town among the various license holders, and at that point in time they indicated that they did not wish to move forward. That was the stated sentiment, I think, of the majority, that they did not want to move forward with Sunday openings at 10 a.m. I'm not sure exactly what changed that view, but that obviously has changed because you now have 6 of these license holders requesting this change.
So I'd be happy, unless there's other comments, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve these applications and allow these 6 businesses to begin selling alcohol at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings.
Okay, just could I ask you, Mr. Wilson, for the record, just to list those names again, so we have.
So those 6 establishments would be Smitty's Liquors, K&B Liquors, Hobart's Country Store, the White Dove Pantry, Stadium Liquor Mart, and Main Street Liquors.
Thank you.
And those are the 6 applications that we've received.
As of tonight, those are the 6. So do we have a second to Mr. Wilson's motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ye. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. So we have completed our ministerial duty on that matter. The documents are here for execution. I will pass these around and ask my colleagues to please sign these. We'll move this along to ABCC as we go.
While we sign, I'll just tell you a funny story. I was in a liquor store the other day that doesn't have an application in front of us, but the store clerk proceeded to tell me that the Board of Selectmen had failed to move on this issue, and that's why they couldn't serve at 10 a.m. on Sundays. And I said, well, I am one of those selectmen. And actually, that's not the truth. Let me explain to you the process. Once a year, I go to liquor stores.
Thanks for sharing that.
Mr. Chairman, do you know how many licenses are out there?
I do not know.
This is really.
I do not know.
Okay.
I have no idea. All right, so I'm going to move along while we're signing this. Mr. Montori, that brings us back to the town manager portion of this discussion. Do you have anything else besides the bond issue
I
discussion?
just have one other item, senior town council's invoice in the amount of $8,898.64, and I would recommend the board approve the invoice.
Is there any discussion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Kanalitis. So we have a motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Kanalitis. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. I'll now move to our clerk, Mr. Kanalitis, relative to outstanding draft minutes.
Yeah, so we all received the email, the minutes from October 21st, our last meeting. And so I would make a motion to approve those minutes as distributed, and that will again keep us current with only tonight's minutes, which will be outstanding after tonight's vote. So I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Gay to Mr. Kanalitis' motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well, making that unanimous. That would bring us to board member reports. I'll ask, let me start to my far right and ask Mr. Kanalitis if he has any comments this evening.
Just a couple, the town center meeting committee has not met recently. We have actually been going again to start to look at the RFP for the design of the town center, the funds that were approved for the special town meeting. The economic development committee met last week, discussed the EdSat assessment that we had all done, several of us that participated in, went over some of the details of that, and continue to look at some of those areas that we can improve on, sort of the low-hanging fruit that was presented to us in that process. And also we're looking at some activities right around the turn of the first of the year to start to highlight some of the business activities in 38. Two other items really quickly. This Friday at the 7th of November is the Education Foundation auction, and I believe tickets are still available, so people should definitely take a look at that. It's a great event from what I've heard. I won't be able to be there this year, but I hope everybody else can get a chance to come out to that. And then the following Friday, there is a community meeting for the Habitat for Humanity bill, for the bill that will be happening here in Tewksbury. That's happening at the Congregational Church in the center of town at 7 o'clock. And I know they're looking for a great turnout, and it'll be an informational meeting, very quick, get the information as far as how you can either participate directly in the bill, donate to the bill, or just generally get involved in the work that Habitat is doing here in Tewksbury. So it's a great opportunity. I hope people will come out from that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wentworth, let's go to you next.
It's interesting that Mr. Kanalitis is on the far right and I'm on the far left. A couple things. Yesterday, we had the Tewksbury Cheerleading Invitational in Tewksbury here at the high school. There were 23 teams that competed. The JV team won first place out of 6 teams. The varsity team won first place and overall. And the cheerleading competition raised over $7,000 that's going to go back to the cheerleaders and to scholarships. So it was a very successful day here, so I appreciate all the work of the folks here at the high school and the support of the schools. Football program won this weekend, so they're playing on Friday night in Marblehead. So if anybody wants to go up and support our team, they're in the playoffs, so Friday night in Marblehead. And then the last thing is, in terms of the CPC committee, we heard from the Historical Society in town, the folks who are responsible for the Line of March, which is the route that the Minutemen took on the way to the Battle of Concord, and they want to put markers along the Line of March. They have received donations already for the marble markers, but they need funding now for placing those markers throughout the town, and they have reached out to the CPC, and we're taking a look at that and seeing if that's a good investment for the town. So we'll be talking about that, and I'll be reporting back on that later. That's it.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, I'll be brief. Really, my item is focused around the beautification committee. We've been talking about some of the minimum standards that we'd like to see along Route 38 and really throughout the community. We are focused on the Adopt an Island program and having that be able to take off in the spring. And we also put together a subcommittee, which I am on, relative to painting the switch box and electrical boxes. So we are sitting down and starting those discussions about what it is we would like to see and maybe a theme or some ideas around that. So lots of activity, mostly targeted for the springtime.
You're not paying, right?
I'm not painting, no, that definitely will not happen. I do not have a lot of artistic skills. So that's really the big idea that I wanted to express.
Thank you. Mr. Gay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one item. The Public Events and Community Activities Committee has scheduled their Christmas event and annual tree lighting for December 7th at the library property like we did last year. But the event will be from 2 to 5, so we're going to shorten the hours a little bit. But we still have quite a few activities that we're going to have, entertainment, food that will be there, a visit from Mr. and Mrs. Claus. And so we're going to have some indoor and outdoor activities. And we're still looking for a little bit more participation, some volunteers, some high school students with community service like we've had in the past. So the plans look good, and I think the event's going to be a successful event like we had last year, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just note the Economic Development Process Review Committee met last week. That's an ongoing project. The committee is still in need of 2 individuals, residents, to serve on that committee. We have one interested party, and I'm going to speak with him and then potentially ask my colleagues to find some time to interview prior to maybe our next meeting, that particular individual. So that's what I have for committee activities to report on this evening. I do want to mention a couple other things very quickly. Tomorrow, we had to have this meeting here this evening because the planning board meets on Mondays, and they are currently meeting this evening at the Pike House, so that particular location was occupied. Tomorrow evening is the state election, national election. So there's elective activity taking place, and it wasn't appropriate for us to be taking up residents' time during an election day. So first and foremost, we are able to hold these meetings and participate, deliberate, take votes at various public forums because we have the ability and the right to vote. And I would encourage all of our residents to exercise that right, regardless of your views, party affiliation, left or right or left, independent. Go vote and make your opinion known, because that is at the foundation of our democracy. Speaking of that, on November 11, before we meet again, I want to make note that on Monday the 11th, or Tuesday the 11th, excuse me, we will be, as a nation, recognizing Veterans Day. And as always, here in town, there is a service at 11 a.m. on the town common. Our new veterans agent, Lisa Downey, is coordinating that effort, and I would certainly invite my colleagues, and more importantly, our community, to show its support for veterans of all of our wars and those who have served us in that capacity. So find some time on Tuesday the 11th to recognize those who have served and serve our nation. We will meet next on November 18, hopefully back at Pike House. And I just want to ask Mr. Montoya if you can forecast for us, is that the evening for the cable contract hearing?
That evening, at 6:30, there will be a hearing on the renewal of the Comcast cable contract. So we'll be taking testimony and comments on information residents would like to present to the board. People who cannot make the meeting can call my office and leave their name and address and comments that will read into the record that night. I actually received a comment today from a resident, so if you can't make it, you can call the office. That hearing will be on the 18th. We'll be starting that meeting at 6:30.
Okay, thank you. And I too, we must have put that notice already out.
It's been in the newspaper. It was in this past Thursdays prior, and we published again this Thursday. And,
I had a call from a resident that asked me to do a connect with it was related to this particular matter, so he had some feedback for us to consider, and we'll have to see what that's about. So there might be some interest in that, so I want to make note that we meet on the 18th, and that particular item will be first at the on November 18th. So that concludes my comments. I want to thank my colleagues for their flexibility in moving this meeting around. I know there was some value behind it under this pilot program for the tax classification process. And obviously, as stated, we didn't want to interfere with the electoral process too long, so your accommodation was much appreciated. I would like to ask at this time if a member has a motion to adjourn. Mr. Wentworth.
Can I just make one more statement, because I missed this? I want to thank the town manager, because last Thursday, he held 2 community meetings and invited the residents to come in, and all of his department heads came and gave a summary of things that were going on in their departments, and residents were there. There was one at 9:30 in the morning and one at 7 at night to help for the folks who couldn't make it in the morning, or folks who couldn't come in the evening. So I want to thank the town manager for holding those meetings and his department heads for their summary, and then the residents who came and asked questions and looked to gather more information. So thank you to the town manager for that.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. So I'm going to ask you if you want to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? We now are adjourned. Thank you, and have a good night.
Jump over one side.